Hi everyone, Sharifa here with ST Law Office, and today I will be doing my Ask an Immigration Attorney live show. So I just want to let you know that this time I am both on Instagram and I am on Facebook and YouTube at the same time, just to save time and take all your questions at once. I am going to just give you a little disclaimer before I start. So you're free to ask your questions here on the show. Go ahead and put your questions in the comment box and I will answer your questions. And then just keep in mind though that the questions that you're asking, the answers that you'll be getting to those questions will be based on general immigration law and general immigration information. It is not personal legal advice. In order to get personal legal advice, you will need to schedule a consultation with me and tell me about your particular circumstances. But you're free to ask your questions, and my answers are usually very helpful to those who are trying to decide what they should do next, if they should find a lawyer, or sometimes my answers will let them know that yes, they're really in trouble and they need help throughout the process. So to get started, I am just going to talk about until I'm going to wait to see if any questions come in today. But in the meantime, I am going to talk about, I've been, on my videos, I've been talking about how to go from undocumented to having your legal papers in the United States. And meaning you don't have to leave in order to apply for your green card. You can stay right here, even if you're undocumented, and yes, even if you came here without a visa or came here without permission, there are ways around that. And I want you guys to know about it so that you can explore your options further. So I'm just gonna go through a list of ways that somebody can go from undocumented to documented, all while staying in the United States. So the first one is the one that everybody thinks about. It's based on your relationship to certain family members, U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident family members, or your spouse. So you can obtain your green card in the United States if you have a U.S. citizen, parent, son or daughter over the age 21 and over, or a spouse, a parent, or a child. So son and daughter, and they have to be 21 and over for you to qualify. And this is one that offers, I think everybody wants to be in this category just because it offers, it is the fastest way to get your green card. So you could apply through those relatives as long as, so if you have a US citizen, all of them are US citizens, then you're considered an immediate relative. And as an immediate relative, you don't have to be on a like kind of wait list to get a visa number to get your permanent resident. You can go apply and get the interview and get your green card, all being well, and you get approved. So that is the one that is I think is the most straightforward way to get your green card. Then, of course, you have other categories of relatives. So with those, those are likely not going to enable you to stay in the United States and obtain legal permanence at the same time. And I'm going to explain why. So if you have a legal permanent resident spouse or a parent, you will fall into a different category. And because there's usually a backlog of individuals waiting for visa numbers to become available, because visa numbers are required to obtain your legal permanent residence, usually it takes a lengthy period of time. So it could take anywhere from, and processing times are always changing, but it could take, for any other category of immigrant, it could take anywhere from 2 to 3 years to 14 years to be able to get through the entire process and get your permanent residence. The reason you wouldn't be able to stay here, or you likely wouldn't be able to stay here and get your green card at the same time, is because as a relative of a U.S. citizen, you're an immediate U.S. citizen. There's no waiting period, and they usually excuse the unlawful presence here. So if you're here undocumented, and you came into the United States legally, then they're not going to hold that unlawful presence against you as the relative of a U.S. citizen's spouse, parent, son, or daughter who's 21 and over. However, with every other category, in order to qualify to obtain your green card here, you have to have your legal status in place. So you have to have some sort of, so for example, you could have a student visa, or your whatever status you have that enables you to legally be in the United States, it has to be in place at the time that you're doing the adjustment of status. At the time that you're at the interview, you have to be in legal status. If you fall out of legal status, then you will not be eligible for the adjustment of status process. You'd have to go outside of the country to the embassy in your country to complete the process. And, it's some people are able to maintain their status while they're going through the adjustment of status process. And that's because, they may have a lengthy type of visa. So they may have a student visa, they may have an employment-based visa that allows them to stay here in the United States while that entire process is going through. However, there are, if you're coming on a visitor's visa, then it's more than likely, if you have a legal permanent resident relative, such as a parent or a spouse, you're not going to be able to maintain that visitor's visa over the period of time that it would take to process the permanent residence application. So keep that in mind. That is why your relationship to a U.S. citizen, spouse, parent, son, or daughter over 21 and over would be the way to go if you want to stay in the United States, even if you have unlawful presence, you've accrued unlawful presence. That is forgiven or overlooked during the process. And you also have to enter legally. But there's also now, if you entered without a visa and without permission, there's also waivers available that allows a waiver that's available to allow you to stay here in the United States while that waiver is going through. And then once it's approved, you can go to your the embassy abroad and not worry about being blocked from coming back to the United States. I just want to reiterate again that please feel free to put your comments your questions in the comment box, and I will answer your questions as they come in. Right now, I'm just covering the topic of going from undocumented to having your legal papers in the United States. So I started with being the immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, spouse, parent, son or daughter 21 and over. That's the one that everybody usually has some clue about. But I'm also going to touch on other ways that individuals may not know about that they can explore to obtain legal papers in the United States. So the first one is what's called VAWA. So with VAWA, it is for individuals who have U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse or parent, or a U.S. citizen son or daughter 21 and over, who is, say they refuse to help you to apply for your legal papers, but say this refusal is connected to other issues, so such as a control issue, abuse, if they are mistreating you in the home that you're sharing, then the VAWA application gives you a way to apply for your permanent residence without informing that relative. You just have to establish that you have a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident relative, and then you can do the rest on your own, as long as you can show that there is this pattern of mistreatment or abuse. Now, the word mistreatment, I use that because it's my rule of thumb. I like to tell individuals that if you are being mistreated in your marriage to a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, to in your relationship with your parents who are U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents, or you are being mistreated by your U.S. citizen son or daughters who you live with, seek legal advice about applying for legal status, your legal papers, without having to involve them. So the way that you can do that is, this enables you to submit that application by yourself, and then it also allows you to get your work permit. So it helps you to establish independence, and then it helps you to move forward with your life, because while the process is pending, your VAWA application is pending, you are also you also have the ability to work and move on, right? So and please keep this in mind, that the VAWA application also still applies even if you're divorced. So if you were mistreated or abused by a U.S. citizen spouse or a legal permanent resident spouse, you can, as long as you've been divorced for less than 2 years, you can still apply for those legal papers and get that work permit. So the work permit, once you submit the petition, so to adjust status in the United States, meaning you go from undocumented, you're applying to go from undocumented to having your permanent residence. Once you submit that application, you go for your biometrics appointment, fingerprinting. Now at the time you submit your application, you also submit an application for your work authorization. And usually after the work authorization usually comes after the biometrics appointment, about 4 to 6 months after the application is submitted. So, and you can have that for a year. And then you can renew that. If the process is taking longer than a year, you can renew the employment authorization as long as the application is being processed. Feel free to ask your questions in the comment box. I will take your questions as in the meantime. I'm talking about different ways that somebody can go from undocumented to documented in the, and when I mean documented, I mean you have your legal papers in the United States and while you stay here. So let's talk about, so for the VAWA application, I know there may be a criminal history involved. So you may have a criminal history. You may have, so you have unlawful presence because you've been living in the United States undocumented. And you may not have come to the United States with permission or with a visa, and that is still okay. There is a way around it. The law has made it so that you as an individual who has been subjected to mistreatment and abuse, you can get past these things and stabilize your life and move forward. So that is not anything that you should, no, you still need to get thorough legal advice regarding any kind of criminal issues and any kind of unlawful presence or coming into the country without permission, meaning without a visa or any kind of inspection or legal papers, right? So there are waivers available that you can apply for with the application, and it does not, that application does not require you, the application for forgiveness doesn't require you to leave the United States. You can still be here in the United States while the VAWA application is being processed, while the waiver is being processed. And in some cases, the waiver is not required if whatever happened in your case, so for example, the unlawful presence living in the United States without legal status, is related to the abusive relationship. So what you need to do, that's the hard stuff that I can figure out for you. So what I want you to do is seek legal advice if you are currently experiencing any kind of mistreatment in your relationship to those relatives, those US citizen or legal permanent relatives. You do that, and then I can do the hard part of evaluating your situation and getting started on your application. You could always call 561-454-8889 to schedule a consultation to explore the VAWA application some more. So that in a nutshell is a summary of the VAWA. But let's move on to the other options. So, you know, I did raise the issue in one of my past videos that sometimes individuals are here in the United States and they don't have any US citizen or legal permanent relatives. And you know, I always say don't lose hope, still explore your options, get a thorough screening on what you may qualify for. Because there are two types of visas that are available called the U and the T visa. So with these, if you have been, so for example, if you have been the victim of domestic violence, so if in the household, your say you have a spouse who is abusing you, but this spouse is not a legal permanent resident, not a US citizen spouse, but you are still being subjected to abuse, then this could possibly be an avenue to the U visa and maybe the T visa. And let me explain why. So the U visa is for victims of certain crimes. And these crimes have to, you know, have caused some sort of trauma as a result of the abuse. So you must have experienced some physical or mental abuse as a result of what's going on. So if you were the victim of domestic violence in your home, you don't qualify for VAWA, then you could still qualify for the U visa. So this is something that I encourage you to explore. Now, my rule of thumb with this is if you have been the victim of any crime in the United States, don't count yourself out because it wasn't a crime that involved violence. It wasn't a crime that started any violence. Don't count yourself out, okay? Still go ahead and explore your options for a U visa based on the fact that you have been the victim of any crime. Now with the U visa, once you go through that, the U visa, the downside of the U visa is that you will be on a very long wait list. The wait list right now is about 10 years, unfortunately. But the upside of that is that you could possibly have if you are placed on that wait list, you could have your work permit for those 10 years while you are waiting for the process to be completed. So it is still an avenue for you to move forward with your life, gain your legal papers, your work permit, and move forward with your life until you can obtain approval on the U visa, right? And once you're approved for the U visa, then you can go on a path to permanent residence. So it ultimately can be a path to your green card and eventually your citizenship. So it is something that, if the VAWA application if you don't qualify for that, you can still qualify for the U visa if you've been the victim of any kind of domestic violence in your home, if your relative or your spouse is subjecting you to abuse, and they are not a U.S. citizen, they're not a legal permanent resident, the U visa may be a path for you. Now, this offers, once you get the U visa, you would have it for 4 years, and you could apply for your green card after 3 years. So the U visa, now to obtain the U visa, you also require, now it requires you to, I said it before, just be the victim of a crime, certain crimes, and you would have had to experience physical and or mental abuse as a result of the crime, and then there must be some evidence, usually through the U certification, that you have cooperated with law enforcement regarding whatever crime you're subjected to. So, but that stuff is what I will figure out. What I want you to do is just give me a call if you have been the victim of any kind of crime. I will screen based on your particular circumstances to determine whether we can move forward with your application, and then I'd prioritize that application for you. So then there's also the T visa. The T visa is for victims of sex trafficking or labor trafficking. So in that case, what I want you to think about in this case is you don't have to be subjected to violence. So there doesn't have to be any kind of physical violence, any kind of imprisonment, any kind of kidnapping. No, by all means, those would definitely qualify as crimes against you that would fall under the T visa, victims of trafficking. But it doesn't have to be just violence, physical violence. It could be the means by which you were coaxed into doing certain sexual acts, or in means by which you were convinced to work without pay or work in very horrible conditions. So keep that in mind. If, say, for example, if you're watching this right now and you're working for someone who's paying you a menial amount of money just because of your status, that could possibly be T trafficking, a T visa qualification right there. So make sure, I like to say, is just make sure, think about what your circumstances are, a past employer. It doesn't even have to be current. If you are the victim of somebody who's taking advantage of you because of your undocumented status, then I would say definitely seek advice about whether you qualify for the T visa. All right, so with the T visa, it's very similar. The benefits are very similar to the U visa. The good news is the T visa, it does not have a wait list. So that is the good news. Now with the T visa, and another thing is you do not have to, now it's helpful, but there are ways to get around one of the requirements that you cooperate with law enforcement. That is not an absolute requirement. The request to cooperate with law enforcement has to be reasonable, and if it's not reasonable, then you could, this is something that I would definitely work to get around. So my rule of thumb with this is, as I said before, if you have been subjected to any kind of coercion, manipulation, any kind of you were convinced to do something you didn't want to do. It doesn't have to involve violence. That is possibly a qualification for the T visa. So make sure you get your consultation. Because I can sit down, screen you based on your particular circumstances, and then advise you whether you qualify and start your application right then and there. Just give me a call at 561-405-4889 to schedule that consultation. All right. So let us also talk about waivers. So I know a lot of you are also worried about, well, I have a criminal record. Is that going to affect my ability to obtain a U, a T, or VAWA application? And no, my answer is there are also ways around it. With the U and the T visas, because they're still considered non-immigrant visas, you would, in cases of certain criminal conduct, it just depends on what kind of conduct, you may require a waiver, but you can submit that waiver along with your application. And that waiver would offer forgiveness for whatever criminal conduct or immigration violation that you have in your record. So don't let it stop you from getting help and applying for these benefits, because they are, even though the T visa is considered, T and the U visa, they're considered temporary, they are a path to permanent residence. So it is still an option. With a T visa, it enables you to get your work permit within 4 to 6 months of applying. And in addition to that, you get to have that work permit until your application. It offers relief for you to move forward and not have to so just go ahead and get the help you need. That's the hardest. Go out there and get the help you need. I am here to help you. Give me a call at 561-405-4889. I'll help you determine what you qualify for, and then move forward with that and apply for you and do the hard stuff for you, okay? So I don't see any questions today, but I am here every 2 weeks. So I'll be here again in the third week of or the third week of September. I'll be here again to answer any questions that you may have. So stay tuned. I'm looking forward to answering your questions. I hope that this is informative. If you have any questions about anything I said here, just give my office a call at 561-405-4889 to schedule a consultation. Also, in the meantime, if you are planning to tune in or you want me to answer your questions in a future Ask an Immigration Attorney live show, just send your questions via DM, and then I will answer your questions on the day that I'm broadcasting the show. All right, and that's if you're too shy to ask it live. I hope I've helped you here with the information I have, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again. Okay, have a good one, guys. Bye.